They're up there tonight, right now. And I think there are some reasons to support that idea.
Like what?
I think they stay away from big cities. I think they wait for people to get together in one place like tonight. And when everyone gets out of that game, they're going to be gone. I think they like people alone. And I think they talk to people with some kind of advanced radio in their sleep.
Right, like you think they did with your son.
I didn't just think this up. I think at the lowest level, they send people on errands. They play with people's minds. They sway people to do things and think certain ways so that we stay in conflict, focused on ourselves. So that we're always cleaning house or losing weight or dressing up for other people. I think they get inside our heads and make us do destructive things like drink and overeat. I've seen good people go bad and smart people go mad. I think at the highest level, they do things that cause nations to go to war. Things that make no sense. And I think no one knows they're being affected. We all work out other reasons to justify our actions. But free will is impossible with them up there.
Yes. Is free will impossible? That is a clip from the excellent UFO movie, The Vast of the Night. And you could easily replace the UFOs with Archons, with mind parasites, with our government, with a corporation. It doesn't matter. The effects are the same. And sometimes we spend too much time trying to get to see who is the baddie, the man behind the curtain, instead of starting by releasing our mind, not being a prisoner of our mind, not having the mind forged manacles that William Blake talked about. But excellent movie. I hope the powers that be don't take it out. So if they take it out, again, The Vast of the Night, good UFO flick if you want to check it out on this spooky season. But welcome to Aeon Bite. Welcome to the desert of the real. Welcome to this Philip K. Dick world, these Gnostic times, and this age of Hermes. Welcome, you spiritual entrepreneurs, you veterans of 1,000 psychic wars, and you Johnny Cash Bodhisattvas. My name is Miguel Connor, and I am very happy to see you, whether you're live or catching us on the replay. Yes, heresy shouldn't be this much fun, and it will be tonight, although we will take some serious issues. We're going to get to that nexus of politics and Gnosticism, and I think tonight you will get plenty. You won't even get red pills. You will get red pill suppositories that crack real horror show, and we'll break everything open so that you could finally get out of this black iron prison. And joining us for this noble task, it's always a pleasure when I am joined by Mr. Adrian Smith. Adrian, thanks for once again coming to Aeon Bite.
Well, thanks. Thank you for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here with you and Vance, and we're going to be talking about politics tonight, so I'm really relieved that Vance will be running interference for us.
Yes, Vance, how are you doing?
Oh, I am not a number. I am a free man. And I've got the backdrop of my favorite show of all time, The Prisoner in the Control Room, is all about politics. So the current subject tonight brought all this to my mind, and I have a few things to say as the show proceeds.
Yeah, you've got the blueprint, or The Prisoner's the blueprint. Isn't it amazing, Vance? Because I watched The Prisoner as a kid. You watched it, and then later on, you learn about Gnosticism. You go, "Oh, that's
Yep.
so logical."
In fact, I think I've watched it almost 30 times, the whole thing, 30 times over the years. Just every few years, I watch it.
Mm-hmm.
We just got finished with last night, actually.
Mm. Did you watch the remake? I hear it wasn't very good.
Yeah.
I guess that says it
No
all.
way. Stupid. You can't improve on perfection. That's all I can say.
No. Even like like now releasing a Tron movie. It's like, look, the first one is just so classic. Why bother?
Yeah.
Second one was okay. Good music,
Yeah.
but leave this Gnostic fair alone. You can only do it once. And then the Archons will cheapen it. They will make terrible copies of it, as they usually do.
Exactly. Just
Awesome.
like Yaldi
Well,
made a copy of the
yeah,
poem,
exactly.
right?
Yeah. Yalda Balid, the Archons, they cannot create on their own. They have to mimic and form and create these fake lesser realities. And that's certainly what's happening today. Well, awesome. Well, for the audience, as always, if you have any questions, please super chat them so that Vance can get to them. Or if he sees anything interesting or relevant, or one of you needs help, he'll get to it regardless. But I'll let Vance be the the great eye in the sky, the all-seeing eye, and so forth of the prisoner. And not much else. As always, please support Aeon Byte in any way you can. Help keep this Red Pill cafeteria open. And I can't do it without you. And we will be taking phone calls later on. So we'll pull it up. So if you have any questions, you don't have to pay. The cost is the FBI guy in the van listening in. That's it. But you can call in and we will take your questions. Well, Adrian, where do you want to start? I actually was really curious. The question I asked you before we turn on the cameras or the streaming button, and we've obviously in the Finding Hermes program in past interviews and your book, A Prison for Your Mind, great book. It's on the show notes. I highly advise people to get it. But we always talk about the globalist agenda, another name for Archons, the cabal, whatever you want to call this consortium of corruption and evil and domination. What is their end game? And as we talk, Canada seems to be 2 steps ahead of the dystopia or in the petri dish of the globalists. But what is the ultimate end game for these people that are reserved for us, common folk?
I think the end game would be transhumanism and global governance and an end of the nation state. And how far are we from the end? I think we're certainly getting close to it. I think the Soviet defector, KGB defector Yuri Bezmenov described various phases of this transition. He called it psychological warfare and subversion of a nation. And it begins with demoralization. That's to make a nation no longer believe in itself or in its values, followed by destabilization. So this makes things unstable. And then that's followed by crisis, which is followed by normalization. They call it normalization, but what that means is an end to what we know as democracy or civil liberties in favor of a global dictatorship. I would say that we're pretty close to the crisis level right now. We're entering into the crisis level. I'm going to be talking a lot from the point of view of the UK tonight for a couple of reasons. One of those is that's where I got my law degree, is the University of London, so I know a lot about the UK and its history. My main interest was the English Constitution and legal philosophy. Another reason is that everything that's happening in the UK eventually ends up on our side of the pond.
Yeah.
So what's happening in the UK now is quite concerning. I think we can certainly say that it's an end of free speech. A lot of people in the streets, a lot of civil unrest, talk of civil war. So we're certainly getting there. And this polarization that's taking place, of course, it's here too. I don't consider it a normal or a natural state of affairs. I don't think there's any necessary conflict between the so-called left and the so-called right. I think it is orchestrated. The divide and conquer, it's the divide and conquer strategy. And so when we talk about political parties, we're talking about partiality, the word part, and then the word impartial, which means above politics or beyond politics. That's becoming increasingly rare because everything is becoming politicized today. The courts are being politicized, the police are being politicized. So the other thing that each side is considering the other side an enemy. So you talk about your political enemies. The idea of having an enemy is comforting to some people because all the evil in the world can be attributed, and Ireland is burning also, as the Graham is saying. Where was I? Yeah, the
Yeah, making enemies, divide and conquer.
making enemies is all the evil in the world can be attributed to the enemy. All the goodness in the world can be attributed to yourself. And so it's a form of projection where you attribute all the evil to your enemy, but you don't look at yourself. And that can feed upon itself, and it can become extraordinarily extreme to the point where things turn murderous. And we see that, for example, we saw that with the murder of Hypatia by a fundamentalist Christian mob. And we saw it, for example, in the French Revolution, the Jacobins, where they went through what is called a reign of terror, where a lot of people were being guillotined. And to show you how extreme it got, one of the founders of the American Constitution, Thomas Paine, was visiting France at the time, and he recommended clemency or mercy for the royal family. And for that, they convicted him and were about to send him to the guillotine.
Oh my God.
And it took a major intervention, primarily from Thomas Jefferson, to get it stopped. So this is the kind of thing that can feed on itself. I had a quote from the Gospel of Thomas. Can you pull that one up for me?
Sure, no problem. Let's see, where is it? Yeah, I'm doing my circus music here. All right, there's the Gospel.
Here we are.
Oh,
back it up
you
one.
say the Philip?
Sorry, the Gospel of Philip.
Okay.
That's right. Let each one dig down after the root of evil that is within us and pluck it out of our heart from the root. It will be uprooted if we recognize it, but if we are ignorant of it, it masters us. So the only way to defang this evil is to be conscious of it within ourselves. And as long as we are caught up in this political battle, we are stuck. And the only way out of this is an evolution of human consciousness. And consciousness is not evolving when it's stuck in this loop. Now, another aspect of this is that each side considers the other the enemy. There's no necessary conflict. There's actually a lot of cross-fertilization that could take place between left and right. If you're an independent thinker, there's no reason why you wouldn't have some ideas which are conservative, some ideas which are liberal, some ideas which are your own. which don't necessarily fit into some neat category. But this isn't allowed, actually. If you're politically aligned, well, you're going to piss off half the population. But if you're not politically aligned, you're going to piss off everybody. And I have a quote from David Hume, who was an independent thinker along those lines. That's the first one in the list. There we are. Here I am, who have written on all sorts of subjects calculated to excite hostility, moral, political, and religious, and yet I have no enemies, except indeed all the Whigs, all the Tories, and all the Christians. So he was saying he'd made a lot of enemies, actually. Weren't too many people left after you take out the Whigs, the Tories, and the Christians. Whigs being liberals in English, Old English, and Tories being conservatives. So the question, I suppose, is impartiality possible even in these times? And I'm going to use a couple of examples from history. Maybe we could throw up the vision of Themis, or the image of Themis.
There you go.
Themis is Lady Justice. She is a symbol of impartiality. She is a symbol of the neutral administration of justice. She is the Greek goddess of divine law, justice, custom, and oracles. And the quote that I put below there, let justice be done though the heavens fall, that's actually a legal maxim.
Mm-hmm.
So let justice be done regardless of political alignment or prejudice or preference. And that's what the blindfold has come to symbolize. And the balance is just going to fall just exactly where it wants to go. It's going to go where the evidence takes it, where the facts take it. And so you have to believe that there are something called facts, and there is a truth, and she's a goddess in this context because there's a lot of intuitive sense. People talk about a sense of justice, so it's not strictly logical. I don't think artificial intelligence will, for that reason, ever be able to invade the law.
No, that's for sure. That's for sure. Didn't I hear that once upon a time Themis, the goddess, didn't have the veil? It's a modern
I heard
thing.
that too.
That's
Yeah.
right. It's more
It's
not. It's
kind of a
yeah.
joke. A cause, justice is blind. Yeah, there is, because there ain't no justice. It's not seen.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I read too.
Yeah, you
So,
find a number of
saw that.
statues, some with the blindfold, some not.
yeah.
And of course, the image of Themis is artistic rendition. Most times she shows up as a statue in front of law courts. Or remember the old Perry Mason show? I used to start with
Yes, yes,
an image of Themis.
exactly.
There's another saying that a lawyer friend of mine actually told me, which is, and they have a picture of it. The law is an ass.
That's from Oliver Twist.
And
That's from Oliver Twist.
it's
Yeah.
interesting because talking about justice, there's a prisoner episode that I just saw the other night called The General. And in the end, the number two, who is the boss of the village, wants to frame this guy that was helping number six, right? Who's the hero of the show. And so what he did is he just fed the machine. They had the general is a machine. Okay. Sorry about the spoiler. So he fed a series of statements which logically had to prove that the guy who helped number six was a traitor. But the way he fed the statements in, you couldn't help but think anything else. Right. But it was being framed by the machine. There was no other consideration, no others, so that's the problem, what you were saying about AI.
That's exactly right. Yes, exactly. I'm going to be talking about that a little later. I wanted to anyway. I want to talk a little bit about Jeremy Bentham because I'm going to tie in a little Gnosticism into this discussion about the law.
Sure.
Jeremy Bentham was a philosopher. He invented the philosophy of utilitarianism, and his theory of justice was that justice was whatever measure created the greatest amount of happiness for the largest number of people, which is, I think, a very flawed philosophy because it allows you to justify many things. For example, slavery, the misery of a few people creating more happiness for the large number of people.
Right.
So he was kind of on the opposite side of the fence to Lady Justice because he was making it a mathematical kind of calculation. And so we see this philosophy showing up in politics, where Henry Kissinger, for example, was being confronted over the senseless wars he had created in the world. And he said, well, it was all for the greater good. So that's utilitarianism, the greater good. It's a kind of a calculation that you do. The evil that you did created more good than the evil that you did, kind of thing. And it's rather take the position some things are just wrong. And you just don't do things that are wrong for whatever reason. And that's part of the maxim, let justice be done though the heavens fall. It's like saying, well, if I do justice in this situation, certain things are going to flow from that which aren't good. Therefore, I'm not going to do it. I'll use an example of John Quincy Adams, who defended slaves who had rebelled against their own, on a slave ship, and they had killed the crew of the ship. And they left enough of them alive to take them back to Africa, but the crew tricked them and brought them to America, where they were put on trial. It should have been an open and shut case because they were taken from a British Crown colony of Sierra Leone, where slavery had been abolished at that time. So they were free men. So they were in fact entitled to make insurrection against their oppressors. But the political situation in the United States was such that there was enormous pressure brought to bear to hang the slaves because the South was about to rebel. It should not have ended up in the Supreme Court, but it did. And John Quincy Adams was the attorney for the slaves. And in previous discussion with the slave leader told John Quincy Adams that in his tribe, in times of trouble, they always would call upon their ancestors. For example, if there was a lion on the loose or some danger or some threat, they would always call upon their ancestors. And John Quincy Adams, in making his defense before the Supreme Court, told this story, and he said, well, perhaps we should do the same here. Perhaps we should look to our ancestors. He pointed to the wall, and his own father was there, John Adams, and the other founders of the Republic. And his argument was that if it means war, let it come. We're going to do what is right. We're going to do what is proper. And it is not proper to allow the executive branch of government to dictate to the courts what they should do and what they should not do, or what they should decide. That's a fundamental constitutional principle, the independence of the judiciary. So going back to Themis, she is the goddess of custom. And so he was, in fact, invoking the spirit of the Greek goddess Themis. And he won the case, and the slaves were freed. And the head slave asks John Quincy Adams, how did you do it? What words did you use? And John Quincy Adams just shrugged his shoulders and said, yours.
Love it.
And his father-in-law, is impartiality possible? Going back to his father, John Adams, who defended British soldiers who had fired upon a angry mob in Boston. They were standing guard in front of Customs House in Boston. There was a riot. Projectiles were hurled at them, chunks of ice and clubs and whatever. They opened fire, and some of the rioters were killed. They were put on trial in Boston, and they couldn't find anybody who would defend them. But John Adams took the case. And he actually won the case in front of a jury in Boston, pre-revolutionary. Now, John Adams was a patriot.
Mhm.
He was in favor of revolution, but he took this case, defended them, brought up all the facts of the case, made a famous statement: facts are stubborn things. And it was determined that they had acted in self-defense because of the nature of I won't go into all the details because we don't have time, but an example of a man of integrity, defending a long tradition of impartiality. Impartiality, I think, is probably the moral value most valued by that tradition, most cherished by it.
Mhm.
Now, how is it like Gnosticism? Well, there's an argument that goes back and forth in law, answering the question, what is law? One side says it's morality. I would be on that side. And others say, Jeremy Bentham, for example, would say that it's the command of the sovereign, that it's orders backed by threats. From their point of view, that's really makes everything simple, clear. When you start talking about morality, then that's everybody's, in his perspective, everybody's got their own version of what's right and what's just. So from their perspective, it would be administratively impossible because everyone would have their own idea about what justice is, and it would open the floodgates to endless litigation.
All right.
Now, put that in a Gnostic context where the Orthodox Church is criticizing the Gnostics, and we know a lot about the Gnostics from that criticism. Irenaeus wrote a book called Against All Heresies. He looked at the Gnostics, and they were being encouraged to bring forth that which is within them. Tell us about your vision, your dream, your insight, your revelation. And it was all done on an individual basis. So Irenaeus is looking at that. This is administratively unworkable. This isn't going to
Yeah.
work. It's going to be utter chaos.
Yeah. Anarchy.
Now, here's the paradox in that. My feeling is that the opposite is true. That this top-down authoritarian, we're going to tell you what to believe, and we're going to have a rigid set of doctrines, and you got to adhere to all of them. That actually leads to endless splintering and endless division. And you see this all the time. The history of England has been Protestants versus Catholics, and them breaking away and somebody else breaking away from them. Whereas all mystics, they're tapped into something that is universal, something that is a sort of a metaphysical ideal, collective unconscious. So all mystics start speaking the same language and coming from the same country. So there's an amazing unity of the spirit that emerges from this non-ideological perspective. I'm going to need a sip of water here for a minute.
Yeah, no, beautifully said. While you take that sip of water, I wanted to mention the idea of the utilitarian. There was always my favorite Star Trek movie was always Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan. I think it's really one of the best science fictions. But even as a kid, as I'm sitting there, and my dad is like tears in his eyes because he was so. But is that scene where Spock is doing, he's dying. He's like, the need of the many outweigh the needs of the few. I remember as a kid going, I don't like that. There's something
No,
wrong
there's
about it.
something
It sounds so
wrong with that one. Yeah, there's
wasn't it?
something
Now
wrong.
we know. So
Yeah,
that's where things, yeah, especially when the many decide you're the slave or the one on the in the
yeah,
oven, or what's for dinner, or you have less food. Yeah. I
yeah.
don't know. Who
It's a
decides?
slippery slope.
Yeah.
It's a slippery slope, and it sounds appealing, on the surface of it, but it is a slippery slope, and you just don't want to go down that road.
Yeah.
The
But
greater good. Madeleine Albright, the Democrat Secretary of State, think for Clinton. She was asked on 60 Minutes about the 500,000 children that died in Iraq as a result of just the sanctions, mind you, not the war,
yeah.
the sanctions. Was it worth it? She was asked. Oh, well, yes, it was worth it. And this is an example of how the political division is in fact illusory, because the Democrats were really just carrying on a policy regarding Iraq that was begun by the conservatives or the Republicans.
Mhm.
See, the demiurge likes to wear a mask of an ideology, a mask of Christianity, or a mask of progressivism. What's behind the mask? Behind the mask is something that is not ideological. It's got its own agenda. And the demiurge is only using that as
Mhm.
cover,
Mhm.
a mask of piety.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
And I wanted to mention also the Somerset case, which was decided in 1772 in England. Um,
Sure.
my Lord Mansfield in the High Court, he set free an escaped slave. And because of the system of precedence in English law, that ended slavery in England 4 years before the American Revolution. And as part of his judgment, he invoked that maxim in particular, let justice be done, though the heavens fall. Because there was, of course, very powerful opposition, very powerful political pressure. But there are these rare individuals who will stand up for the truth and stand up for divine justice and custom, tradition. Because he mentioned as part of his judgment that slavery in the common law is inimical to the common law or hostile to it. The common law goes back pre-Magna Carta.
Mhm.
So he was arguing for the ancestors. Remember the ancestors.
Makes sense. Vance, what do you think? Do you have a comment or question at this moment in time?
Oh,
Or a
yeah.
rant?
Yeah, well, laws, first of all, when you talk about laws being associated with morality, I agree with that. And really, I think comes down to the golden rule, would you want to have something done to you that, a criminal would do to someone else, right? Every
Well,
law is based on that. And so I thought that was brilliant, the golden rule. I don't know how far back the golden rule goes. That'd be something that'd be interesting to, or maybe somebody in the audience can inform us, unless you know,
Very
Adrian.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
or if you have skin in the game, if Madeleine Albright or wants to get a gun and go to Iraq, or if Trump and Rubio want to go on a boat and shoot Venezuelans, go ahead, right?
Well,
yeah,
that brings
sure.
another thing I was going to talk about, which is the very existence of law creates a class of people who don't want to obey it and gather together and benefit for example, drug runners, right? What you just cited. And so it's like the golden rule is kind of confusing in that case. Well, if I were a drug runner and I'm doling out lots of drugs that are killing people and addicting people and stuff, would I want to be blown up? Well, no, I wouldn't want to be blown up. So therefore, the golden rule kind of fails in that case. But it's kind of like another level down. I mean, if I were, it seems to me that somehow the golden rule should be able to be turned around and say, well, you should. You're right. Thank you, Anon.
Wizard of Id. I know that came from the Wizard of Id, a comic book or a strip I used to read as a kid. Very, very satirical and sophisticated.
And that's the other side.
Makes the rules.
Yeah, that Adrian was talking about. Well, the law is just whatever the sovereign says it is, right? It's easy, right? If I gather all the money, and that's what we're seeing, I think, in the United States and the world today. The people with money and a lot of money is being garnered in the drug trade. And I think what we have is a modern invisible mafia that's no longer limited to any particular ethnic group, that is buying judges and police and politicians and pushing for things that enrich their business, all against the law. So they have their own laws, though, inside, don't they? So it's within their criminal enclave, they have their own rules and their own laws.
Yeah, but
if you take
honor with thieves is always, blackmail and other things to keep each other honest. That's a little different,
right?
Man. Whatever the mafia does to keep itself honest.
That's one of the arguments, actually. That's one of the arguments against Jeremy Bentham, is the law of the mafia boss. Fetch me a beer, or Fredo, go down to the airport and pick up Don Corleone. Is that the law? The command of the sovereign? No, because it lacks any character as law, which it doesn't have any moral content to it. So the other side would argue that there must be a moral content to it.
Well, it prevents killings. If you disobey the law, the order, then you get killed or punished. See, which is just what the law does. So, in that sense, it is a law.
There is a coercive aspect. That's why Emus has a sword in her hand. And in fact, the way the law, we're not talking about how the law ought to operate. We're talking about how it actually has operated and should operate. And it kind of operates with both, some dynamic tension between both. And sometimes it goes one way or another. Like after the war, there was a controversy about the so-called Nazi informer cases, where a spouse might report on their husband or their wife to say, let's get rid of them, go down to the police station and say, well, my husband said nasty things about Hitler. Next thing you know, husband disappears. And after the war, the moral argument was that they had committed murder and should be prosecuted. The other side says, no, the sovereign was Hitler, and that was his law, and these people were good citizens, solid citizens of the Nazi regime. In fact, the moral side won, and there were prosecutions brought. In fact, the legal positivists are the Jeremy Bentham side. They were actually against the Nuremberg trials too, because they thought that it was there was no sovereign there.
Exactly.
So it kind of goes back and forth that way. I was wondering if we could bring up the second slide.
Sure.
I had on there.
You got it. Let's see. Slide number 2. Back to the Gospel of Philip.
One more, please. Forward. Yes, and one more after that. Okay, that's observation of George Orwell on politics, the author of the famous 1984, which I'm sure everybody knows about. George Orwell was fighting in the Spanish Civil War, actually on the side of the communists. But he began to notice that there were atrocities being committed on both sides. So he came up with a few comments or writing in his writings truth is distorted according to one's political affiliation. Atrocities are believed in or disbelieved in solely on grounds of political affiliation. Everyone believes in atrocities committed by the enemy. And this is going to be a fundamentally important one next. Intellectuals and the media, people who live in the world of ideas, were prone to being especially out of touch with reality.
So right. So it still
And
is.
this, to me, represents the real political divide. The real political divide today is, do you want to be ruled by the experts, the intellectuals, the scientific materialists from a central location in the world? Or do you prefer the wisdom of the average citizen, local decision making, local control? Now, the common law has always favored the latter. It's always favored the wisdom of the average person as opposed to the intellectual. The intellectuals are absolutely the last people that you want to run things. That is what's happening now. This showed up, for example, in the jury system, which predates Magna Carta. In the jury system, it was the average citizen that determined the fate of their fellow citizen. The idea was to remove that decision making from some potential tyrant or king. And the jury system has persisted through the ages and still exists, although the current crop of Fabians are trying to eliminate it because it's exactly the opposite of their kind of administration. Another, his final thing saying here, a necessary prerequisite of totalitarianism is abandoning the idea that there is a shared objective reality. So this is something that is being pushed today, that there's no such thing as truth.
Right.
There's your truth, my truth. Everyone has their perception. So then it becomes for them a game of perception management. So whatever they say is real, because they'll just make it so. So maybe we could go on to the next one.
Why, surely. Right, we got the Fabian Society. As I was saying, people used to talk a lot about them about 6-7 years ago in podcasts and so forth, and they kind of disappeared. We replaced them, I don't know, with Soros and Trump and others, but they're still kicking, are they, Adrian?
Oh, are they ever? Oh, yes. I'll come back to that
Fabian was a member of Fabian Society.
Well, it was
Fabian back in the 50s.
Fabio. Yeah, I remember.
Fabio,
No, Fabian. No, there was a singer named
Fabian.
Fabian.
Yeah.
Oh, was there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, I digress.
The Fabian Society was started in 1884 in London. And when Orwell wrote his book 1984, he was trying to tell us what the world would look like after 100 years of Fabians. The name Fabian Society comes from Marcus Fabius Maximus, who was a Roman general, fought Hannibal. His strategy was incremental, no open battle, no big conflict, little skirmish and withdraw, skirmish and withdraw, skirmish and withdraw, wearing down the enemy. Then when the enemy was worn down, strike suddenly. So that's what I was talking about earlier, the crisis phase. We might be approaching that crisis phase. Things have been worn down so much over such a long time that society is ripe for this now. So part of their agenda is to destroy the old world and reconstruct it from the ground up. They have to destroy, in particular, the ethos or the values, like I was talking about, the sense of justice, the sense of constitutional integrity, the belief in the freedom of speech, the separation of powers, all that has to be broken down. We have to get a politicized judiciary that just follows a politicized police force, so that in England right now, the police are really busy arresting people for mean tweets, and so on. Now, Marx was against concentrated capital. The Fabians were against all private property, own nothing and be happy. So
That
this,
sounds
of course, is
familiar.
something, it sounds familiar. It's coming from the World Economic Forum. So a lot of Fabianism is reflected in a number of these think tanks and organizations.
You'll
The
own
Fabian
nothing and
Societies,
like it, yes. You'll own
Fabian
nothing and
Society is
be
just
happy.
where it's beginning. And then we talked about moral relativism and utopianism, which is a big part of this. If you really believe in something, like if you're really ideologically committed to something, that's when the utilitarianism comes in. In order to bring in this utopia, if we have to kill a large number of people, that's okay because it's justified because we're bringing in utopia. You have to be really sure of yourself, though, which they are. They really believe that this is going to happen, and they believe it right up until the time they come face to face with reality. They have to change the religion for political purposes, and it's been part of my thesis all along that, having been once a fundamentalist, that religion shows up in corporations. I once thought that the church was a business disguised as a religion, and a corporation is a religion disguised as a business.
Mm-hmm.
In politics, it's all the same thing. Instead of church doctrines, you have company policies, or you have, in the case of political parties, their party platform. The Fabian Society was very much in favor of eugenics, that is to say, eliminating the sickly, the infirm, the disabled, the retarded. And today we're seeing that show up as MAID, medical assistance in dying, which is, for people who are terminally ill with no hope. There's some justification for it. But they're now extending it to homeless people, telling homeless people, your life is not very good. You sure you want to leave? You don't want to leave this earth? And here again, we see recruit the wealthy, capitalist friendly. Now remember that the Fabian Society gave birth to the Labour Party in Britain. They were all Fabians, and today we have the Labour Party in power. Keir Starmer is a Fabian. 3/4 of his government belonged to the Fabian Society. The arch-Fabian was Tony Blair, who was responsible for the illegal war in Iraq. He should be on trial in The Hague, but he's always being trotted out as some kind of elder statesman. So there you have the Labour Party is not, supposed to be in favor of eugenics, eliminating infirm people, or, the first thing Starmer did when he got into power was eliminate the winter fuel allowance, and 3,000 elderly people died of hypothermia.
Really?
Government statistics, and this is supposed to be the Labour Party. So my point is, when you're looking at the mask, when you're looking at the ideology, you're not really seeing what's happening behind it, or what the nature of the thing that's behind it. So you have to kind of make qualitative evaluation of it. What are the qualities of the thing, the monster that is behind these political parties? Maybe we could go to the next slide.
Here you go.
And maybe the next one. George Bernard Shaw. Now, George Bernard Shaw was a founding member of the Fabian Society, famous playwright. I was just reading a quote from him the other day. I don't want to punish anyone, but there are a large number of people I would like to kill. Right from, I didn't make it up. It's from his own mouth,
Yeah, no Mark Twain or Oscar Wilde. No.
He expressed admiration for the genocide of both Hitler and Stalin, but his objection was they should have killed the working class instead. Now, that doesn't sound like the Labor Party to me, Now, Stalin disapproved of Fabianism because he preferred a sudden, swift, and violent revolution as opposed to the Fabians acting very slowly and very deliberately over long periods of time.
Right.
Stalin considered the Fabians to be pathetic and weak. And kind of the one thing that I agree with Stalin about. Gender distinctions to be eliminated. Everyone would be wearing gray jumpsuits. All non-socialists would have to be eliminated. He really did write all those things, and he was the founding guy. Maybe the next one, please.
He said all whites must be eliminated? George Bernard Shaw said that?
Yes.
That's
all white or all non?
I think it was a sort of a stand-in for Western civilization or European civilization, which was the values of which would have to be overturned in order to bring in their global dictatorship. Another famous Fabian was H.G. Wells, who wrote The Open Conspiracy Blueprint for World Revolution. It was called The Open Conspiracy because it was hidden in plain sight. Hidden in plain sight means hidden but discoverable, easily discoverable if you want to know. And the big question is, do we really want to know? And if we are presented with information that contradicts our most cherished beliefs, does cognitive dissonance take over, and does it get shoved into the subconscious? So he wrote The Open Conspiracy, New World Order, another book by his, and The Time Machine. So it was to establish human control over the destinies of life, to liberate from present dangers and uncertainties. And this is an important aspect of it, because eliminating dangers and uncertainties is part of the transhumanist agenda. It's to take away all the decision making. You don't have to worry about it. We'll take care of it for you. We will keep you safe. How often do we hear that? Like even the Jacobins, their form of government was called the Committee of Public Safety. It's all about keeping you safe. You don't have to worry. We will protect you. It's not like we're going to go back into the womb or something like that, where we're smothered with protection and safety and safe places. And I was just reading the other day about schools in England. Children are given a code, and they have to give this code to the teacher when they want a comfort break. They want to be comforted. And we don't do applause anymore, because that could hurt your ears. So it's a little bit like the toxic parent. Did you ever come across the book Toxic Parents?
No.
Toxic parents are parents who smother their children, not out of love, but out of a desire to tie them to their parents forever. They don't want them to fly from the nest. They don't want them to grow up.
Yeah, Elvis's mother was one of those, yeah.
They want to keep them in a kind of infantile state and to hobble them or to cripple them. And I'm going to flip right now, while I think about it, to the last one on the list, Eloi and Morlocks. In the time machine, the protagonist goes to the future. He sees two races of people, the Eloi and the Morlocks. The Morlocks were living subterraneously, and they were predators, and they were preying on and cannibalizing the Eloi that lived on the surface. The Eloi that lived on the surface were kind of a very passive, almost zombie-like race of people that were unmotivated. And there was a case where there was a girl drowning in a lake, and they were all just standing there looking like a bunch of zombies, with no reaction. It's almost like they had become like potted plants. So this is the trajectory of that kind of trying to eliminate all risk, all uncertainty. It's like we're standing at a fork in the road where one direction goes a human direction, the other one goes in a transhuman direction. One is a biological future, the other is a silicon-based future. The world would be politically, socially, economically unified. This will ultimately be a world religion, which kind of ties into my own thesis that it's all religion. Scientism will take us there, but scientism in the sense of, going back to Bentham, scientism, there's no other way to discover reality other than through the scientific method, whereas the Gnostic would say, no, we have this divine connection. And Themis would say, we have this sense of justice, which is not rational, not logical. We have a sense of justice. We have a feeling for justice.
Materialism, in other words, really.
Absolutely. Scientific materialism. They don't want to leave this material reality. They want to stay here themselves, and they want to keep us here with them.
Well, they don't think there's anywhere else to go, right?
Either that, or they're afraid of where they're going to go, or what's going to happen if they leave.
Right.
Maybe either one or the other. Yeah. Formation of and subordination of personal life to a responsible world directorate. Obstacles: family, nation, and religion. We have to eliminate the family, the nation, and the religion. Why? I'm going to go to Orwell. O'Brien, the chief tormentor, is tormenting Winston. And O'Brien says to Winston, there's no other love than the love of Big Brother. And there's no other loyalty than loyalty to the party. Mm-hmm. So what does family, nation, and religion represent? It represents another love and another loyalty, and that's why they want to get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
And another authority, right?
And another authority, yes. Another form of authority, yes. Say what you will about it. I mean, you don't have to be, the Brady Bunch or Leave It to Beaver, but it does represent an alternative, let's say, to global government.
Yeah. Pretty dark. I don't even know what to say. Same as it ever was. And like 1984 says, what does O'Brien says, power is not the means, it's the end. In other words, we'll get there and we're going to rule because we just want to rule. That's it. There's no altruistic idealized. At least Lenin had an ideal, but these other cats, Stalin and the Fabian Society, is just control. Like the demiurge and the Archon.
Absolutely.
Paradoxically, yes. It's a form of individualism, right? It's the people who want to take over the world, they want everything their way. As an individual, they want to ignore everybody else. So in a way, it's a form of individualism, but they need collectivism to be the top individual.
Yeah. And when they talk about being socialists, what they really mean is collectivist.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Obviously, from what we've just seen, they're not in favor of the working class. They recruited from the ultra wealthy and the privileged. And that's where it's coming from. Now, this is a stained glass window that was commissioned by H.G. Wells, now on display at the London School of Economics, which was founded by Fabians.
Mm.
And it ties again in this religious theme. You know, they're kind of making my case for me here that politics is very close to religion, sets of doctrines. And here at the bottom, we have prayerful supplicants on their knees, worshiping what? A pile of literature produced by the Fabians.
Oh, so sweet.
And here we have H.G. Wells himself with another cat that I can't remember his name, but they're on a forge and a bellows, so they're forging a new world order. And the next one, please.
And where's this found?
It's at the London School of Economics.
Wow. Well, instead of, stealing the Louvre or throwing paint on the Mona Lisa, we need to go on a tour and take care of this one. I didn't say that. All right, let's go to the other slide.
Okay, that's the emblem. The original coat of arms of the Fabian Society is a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Giving away the plot.
What else do you need to know? So who is the wolf? The wolf is all these genocidal maniacs, eugenics, mass murder, extermination, labor camps. And who is the sheep? Well, that's the face that they put on, this progressive, oh, we're here to help. We're here to take away all your pain, and to take away all the vicissitudes of life and all the uncertainties and the dangers of life. I got to mention a song that came up from a local band called The Great Balancing Act. They're a local group in a very small community, and it's amazing the amazing talent that exists at the grassroots level everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people who are catapulted to great fame were put there actually, or helped by these Fabian types. But the song has some very interesting lyrics. It starts out, stay safe, stay out of trouble, be like the boy in the plastic bubble, the Eloi.
Oh.
Danger, danger everywhere. Dangerous people breathing dangerous air. Stay in your bungalow, it's safer in there. So I thought I brought out, it's called Le Contrôleur, the controller.
Love it.
And we could go see what's coming up next.
Mass Gospel of Philippe.
Maybe we can come back to this one a little later. My order is not really all it should be. And we want to go back, sort of backtrack a couple of them.
What slide?
One more. Oh, here we go. So let's stop at this one. The Age of AI, Our Human Future, written by Henry Schmidt and Henry Kissinger. Did I get that right?
Henry,
anyway.
Yes. Vince, I've got to let an animal out. I'll let you be the demo.
Okay.
Hold on.
All righty.
Keep going, Adrian.
Yeah, Schmidt is SCHM, I believe.
Yes, I guess. Okay, CHM. Yeah, I spelled it wrong. Now, this is I divided into what they said AI is promising us versus my own observations. What they say is the real promise of AI is not the convenience it will bring, but it will forever alter the way humanity perceives and processes reality. the content to be provided by AI and censored by AI. So it's a matter of perception management. People will depend on AI to tell them what is real and what is not. Humans will lose the ability to do it themselves, and they use the word cognitive impairment, which again reminds me of the Eloi. The Eloi looked like a bunch of cognitively impaired people, you know.
Right.
They use the pocket calculator and mental arithmetic as an example. It's kind of like use it or lose it. So technology is a double-edged sword. It provides convenience, it provides a lot of benefits, but there's a price to it that you become increasingly dependent upon it. And this is my observation. Convenience produces dependency, and dependency makes you vulnerable. So we're being invited to enjoy higher and higher levels of dependency, which makes us vulnerable to the control system, because they can always take away what we've come to depend on, and we won't know what to do because we've lost the ability of how to survive without it. That's the danger that we face. And that's something we have to count the cost of in terms of technology. So that going along with this is a lack of human interaction, a more of a machine reaction, robotic, automatic. I consider it to be the transhumanist agenda, a Trojan horse, in the sense that the Trojans believed that this thing was a gift from the gods. And they invited it in without considering what was in the belly of the beast.
Yeah, it's true. But you know, it's been going on for a lot longer than what we call AI. I mean, the second we had radio and television broadcasting, and go back before that, newspapers. I mean, the people who control printing newspapers control people's minds by what they printed. Like William Randolph Hearst was a good example of deliberate use of the media. I mean, maybe some of the people that did newspapers back then were trying to be objective and be actual reporting, actual reporting rather than be journalists. In other words, they write, you know, whatever they want to have an effect. But it goes way back, and AI is just the latest iteration of the control of information.
Right, and it's sort of the most dangerous phase because in the past, technology relieved us from physical labor, but AI is going to relieve us from mental activity, and that's more dangerous. We might lose the ability to know what is true for ourselves. We'll say, let's consult AI. Let AI tell us what's real.
Yeah.
And it goes back to their concept is perception management. They don't believe in truth. So what they program into AI to tell us what is true is what they want us to believe.
Yeah, I've seen it myself in ChatGPT and Gemini, and I use the AI quite a bit. And a lot of times I'll catch it, you know, being, you know, slanted, trying to, you know, push me into a certain way of thinking. And I'll challenge it sometimes to say, hey, that was a biased statement. And then, oh, yeah, it was biased. And then it goes back the other way. But
You caught me.
Really, I argue with it sometimes. It's horrible.
Yeah, you have to. You have to push back with AI.
Yeah, so it's like any other person. You have to treat it like you would another person. If they say something that sounds like bullshit, you just can't swallow it. You gotta say, hey, you got to call them on it, and it'll correct itself.
It will.
Sometimes.
It'll give you a better option and say, all right, let's try this. My bad. No. It's like the demiurge, another toddler you got to work with. Yep. So many toddlers in this world. All right.
Let's try another slide in this deck of cards here. George Barnard Shaw, we've seen that one. We've seen that one. Seen that one.
Want to go back to
more Gospel of Philip. this is my attempt at optimism, because I really think that it's a question of consent. Therefore, we really don't have anything to fear, because they really do need our consent. They need our complicity.
Mm-hmm.
They
Right.
want us to actually lobby for what they want or insist upon it. Do we really want to give away our power? And I've had that discussion with myself over my previous incarnation as a fundamentalist minister.
Mm-hmm.
Did I want someone else making my decisions for me? So are we complicit? Or I've even speculated that reality mirrors back to us our state of consciousness. So if I had not wanted to be controlled or to be relieved of my responsibility or to abrogate my responsibility, would it have been different? Would I have reflected back a different reality? In other words, if the wizard hadn't existed, I would have had to invent him,
Right.
sort of thing. It's like maybe there's a reciprocal relationship there, which means that our way out of it is through evolving our own consciousness, becoming more human. We got to be fully human before we can be anything else. And to be human, we have to accept the risks, we have to accept the uncertainties, and not take that tempting invitation to be relieved of all that. We'll keep you safe. So maybe there's an overriding purpose, and the Gospel of Philip seems to indicate that, where it says, "Whoever sows in winter reaps in summer. Whoever sows in winter reaps in summer." Winter is the world, summer is the eternal realm.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever we go through now has implications, or as Marcus Aurelius famously said, what we do in life echoes in eternity.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one, the rulers thought they did all they did by their own power and will, but the Holy Spirit was secretly accomplishing by the Spirit's will. That to me points to a kind of overriding purpose to our experience here, to embrace our humanity and to engage in our own autonomy and independence and bring forth that which is within you. That will bring the reign of the Archons to an end. And I think they know it.
Mm-hmm.
They know that we have nascent abilities, clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, psychic abilities, paranormal abilities, psychokinesis, telepathy, you name it. All these things have been drilled out of us, or been kept from us, just as knowledge of ancient civilizations with these kind of internal technologies have been suppressed. My friend Andy Thomas of the Glastonbury Symposium has written a book called Strange, in which he goes through all these nascent abilities and strange events and happenings which challenge our conventional notions about reality. He asked me to give him some examples from my own experience of strange events, which I did, and they're in the book. It's a great book. I would recommend it, called Strange. He covers everything. Andy Thomas. While I was reading the book, and I was reading all the experiences that other people had submitted, suddenly a flood of my own experiences came forth that I had not revealed. And it was as though that old programming of let's keep this quiet or let's suppress it. It's upsetting to our understanding of how to function in this world and so on. But that was an interesting experience for me. I think we can flip to the concluding thing now. Conclusion.
Conclusion.
Oh, yes. There's one thing I wanted to bring up regarding the big fight that goes on between left and right, ideological possession and the relative unimportance of ideology, a qualitative approach, that is to say, by their fruits you shall know them. Much more important, I was thinking also of the parable of the Good Samaritan. The Samaritans were, in every respect, Jews, except they worshipped in Mount Gerizim, and they had a different holy place. For that reason, they were completely shunned and excluded by the Jewish community. They were the evil ones. So a Jew is in a ditch, having been set upon by thieves. A whole bunch of Jews go by and do nothing, and along comes this Samaritan and pulls him out of the ditch, helps him and gets him back on his feet. It's like the last thing they would have expected. But to me, it illustrates the relative unimportance of a person's belief or ideology versus what kind of people they are. Are they charitable? Are they generous? Are they kind? Are they empathetic? Whereas the ideologically possessed only look at the ideology, and that's the main thing. I talked about the paramount importance of consent. I talked about our human future, biological or technological, carbon-based or silicon-based. The narrow way, broad is the way to destruction from the Old Testament, from the New Testament. I mentioned the Great Balancing Act. Broad is the way. We'll keep you safe. We'll do your thinking for you. You won't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about a thing. Trust us. Leave it all up to us.
Yeah.
Don't worry. I talked about our human potential, nascent abilities in Dandy Thomas's book, my book, A Prison for the Mind, and my blog, prisonforthemind.blog. And in conclusion, that's all I have to say about that.
Brilliant. Thank you. Showed us the problem, and these solutions certainly work. Let's pull up if we want to get some phone numbers before we go on our way. I got the phone number here if anybody wants to call. I had some stuff. The only thing I wanted to show right now is David Litwa. Coincidence? The great Gnostic scholar actually put a blog on Gnostic politics. And in one part he writes, to someone who says our new ruler is doing some really bad stuff, the Gnostic responds, when have rulers ever not done really bad stuff? And all three of us are old enough to know when we were, the story never changed. Politicians are corrupt, the rich get richer, the poor, we know it hasn't changed. Gnostics have lived and thrived during the cruelest of empires, and for them, the cruelest empire was the Christian one. To the Gnostic, evil archons is redundant. Good rulers are the surprise, and good rulers are very relative. For even good rulers must use the forces of violence and death to maintain the boundaries of their own domain. And it's a great article that Litwa put up. And again, it talks about, the Gnostics would see all rulers as corrupt. All political systems are corrupt. But the individual, as you're talking, Adrian, is superior. One human is superior than a horde of archons. We've just been fooled to think we are not. And if the Gnostic focuses on the eternal, on what is right, like you're talking about John Quincy Adams and all these ideas that they're eternal, they're right, they're good, then everything will work out, even if the world will be ruled by these powers and principalities and that wickedness in high places. So skepticism. I would say the Gnostics would, and always say that the Gnostics always said that we are the aliens. We are an alien citizens, regardless of what empire, what country we are. So we have to focus on the eternal, on what is good and what is timeless. I mean, it's very, very simple. I would say the Gnostics probably politically We're close to anarchists, the cynics, of ancient Greece, maybe the communists of the 19th century. Marx had good ideas, but then we all know communism became a intrinsically violent movement in the 20th century, and I don't think communism is ever going to change. I think it will always be violent, but original communism. So I think that's more or less what the Gnostics are. Strangers in a strange land. All rulers are evil and corrupt by definition, because power corrupts immediately. And as I tell people, nobody is coming to save you. We have to save ourselves. We have our communities. I tell people, you have to understand that Trump is not the disease. He's just a symptom, just like Thoreau and Carney. And we have to stop looking at the symptoms and look deeper into the rot of what happened. Like you say, Adrian, did we create them? Yeah, we kind of gave them consent because we wanted safety. At some point, we wanted safety. We wanted an easy life. Thinking and feeling is painful. Growth is painful. And we gave away our sovereignty, even though there are more of us than them. And even though we have the power, we could overthrow all of them immediately tonight, this year, if we wanted to, and bring justice and bring a better rule of law if we wanted to. Anyway, I'm ranting and raving. Vance, do you have a rant or a call or anything?
Oh, rant. Well, yeah, this is a good opportunity to present my three-dimensional.
Your dog anarchist too.
Yeah, he's Fabian. He's that wolf with the sheep's clothing. Anyway, I was going to tell you. Hang on a second.
He really is a Fabian.
Mm-hmm. You were saying at the
three-dimensional political. Okay, we say left and right, left and right, left and right. That's all you ever hear is the left, the right, left, right. Well, I invented something years ago called the three-dimensional political system. There's a left and a right, but there's also an up and a down, and a forward and a back. And so, what the up is towards personal freedom. And the down is towards personal slavery. And then the forward is trying to develop, being progressive. And I don't mean progressive in the sense that we talk about it nowadays, which equals left, right? No. Progressive is like develop technology, try to solve our problems through, inventing things with our minds, so forth. And the back is the status quo, let's keep things the way they are. Let's get rid of all this technology that's giving us problems. Let's go back to the farm and all that stuff. So you can take people and rate them in this three-dimensional scale. And you can see like a left forward would be, and I didn't explain left and right. What I say left and right is left is like the mother. And like, we're going to take care of you and we care. And the right is like, everybody's for himself, rugged individualism, you got to make it on your own. So if you look at it, that you can take all the political systems and put it on this three-dimensional cube, so to speak. So it's food for thought.
So it's like a multi-dimensional look at something.
Yeah.
Yeah, God, yeah.
Because
it's much more realistic. Much more realistic. Left and right doesn't really mean anything anymore.
No. Well, yeah, it does in a way. The people on the left are, the people on the left are all, the problem is left is only one of the dimensions. You could, the people on the left they all claim they care, right? They care about people and they want, and also unequal distribution of wealth, right? They want to distribute all the wealth to everybody, right? Like the nice mother that says, I want all my kids to have the same things, I don't want to favor anybody. Everybody's the same. And then
everybody's
on the right
says,
there's meritocracy, I like my son, the first son is the best because he's the smartest and he works the hardest. And so I'm going to give him more because the other guys are lazy. So forget them, right? That's the right. So, but so there is something to the left, but it doesn't really tell you the whole thing because there are, libertarians are more, I would say, I don't know, they're somewhere up in the upper freedom for everybody, and they can be left or right, but basically they tend to be a more I don't know if you could say libertarians are right or left. And somebody did ask whether or not Gnosticism has a particular, magnetism towards political orientation.
I would
Now,
say
my
anarchism.
opinion is that, yeah, well, anarchism, also, and any type of individualism, because it's, Gnostics have to be heretics, right, compared to the mainstream religions and societies. So we have to be on our own. I mean, look at if you look at any Christian YouTube channels, they probably have thousands of viewers and lots of money flowing, all this other stuff. Look at us, like how many people are Gnostics? It's hard to get us all together. We're all individualistic. There's not that many of us. So, I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think a Gnostic would say, let's look at a situation or a dilemma or a policy on its merit, on the facts, and draw either from the left or the right, depending upon the circumstances.
Yeah.
Whereas an ideologue would always be stuck on one side or the other. A
Yes.
Gnostic would be kind of, it depends, It depends on the circumstances of the time or what circumstances we're in, in a world just full of violence, you might need more law and order, more of a conservative approach.
Yeah.
But then you wouldn't want that law and order to turn into a tyranny in times of peace,
Yeah.
There's a time for everything, as it says in Ecclesiastes,
It's a
For everything, there's a time and a season.
Because I think we Gnostics, we aspire to be connected to the universe, right? To the greater reality. And the greater, that's a context, right? And so what you're saying is, like, we want to take the biggest context that we can and take and, bring it to bear on the situation. Whereas an ideologue has got can't see the forest for the trees. They say, well, it's got to be,
And there's something automatic about it, which is, it's just like a knee-jerk reaction to everything, or an ideological response to everything. So there should be some cross-fertilization between these two polar opposites you describe, some cross-fertilization. We could sit down and have a dialogue and take the wisdom from wherever we can find it and apply it to whatever circumstances before us or in front of us.
Case by case. And of course, the Gnostics were mystics, so they believed in charity and compassion. You see it in all the works, worrying about the poor and the sick. That's just being an awakened human being. And, if other people, the goal is to everybody wake up so we can all, unite and transcend. And if people are hungry or sick, they can't wake up. So we have to help that. So maybe we got to put in some socialism for a while. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Exactly. Sometimes,
property and all that.
Sometimes we need more from the left. Sometimes we need more from the right.
Yeah, and it will come. If you're awakened, we will go in the right direction. And yes, people ask questions. Well, what is it? I said, well, that's the beauty, the great unknown. But the unknown is a good place when you are awake, when you're conscious, and when you're full of compassion. And when you have no fear. Stop being afraid. Fear is the mind killer. That's what they want you afraid. So you're dependent on their narcotics, on their drugs, television, television and divide and conquer and all that. And they tell you can't live without us. The evil husband that beats his wife, and without me, you would be nothing.
Oh, yes.
The burning bed. Let's get Farrah Fawcett back in there. Anyway, we're certainly getting on some good rants, but this is good advice for sure. If there's no phone calls, I guess we will start to wrap it up. So, Adrian, are you positive, negative, realistic? How are you with
long-term positive? Very, I think there's signs of more and more people becoming aware of these ideological traps that we're in. The only question is, I think that the demiurge lost the moment that the spirit of Sophia was breathed into the human being,
It
and
was.
the demiurge lost it. And he knows it, but he can't stop. He can't stop. He can't. So the defeat is inevitable. The only question is how much pain between here and there. That's the only question.
Yeah, yeah. Sophia started a rescue operation as soon as, like you said, as soon as he was born, she was working behind
Mm.
the scenes. Sophia, Themis, whatever you want to call this being that keeps appearing all over the place. In literature, and Fatima is the Virgin Mary, who's all the white lady. She's all over, and she's working behind the scenes. And as I've said, there was a time when politicians and writers and philosophers talked about wisdom. Now, no politician talks about wisdom because they know they want to keep her, in the background. Don't be wise.
Yeah, that's right. That's what we were talking about, wisdom, when to apply principles from the left and right. It's all a question of getting some guidance or some wisdom from our connection with the divine, our
Beautiful.
sense of what is right, our sense of justice.
Yeah. And it's so hard today. I mean, sometimes you will look at somebody, a leftist or a MAGA, and you'll tell them, look, I'm neither right nor left. I neither support Trump nor am I against him. And their minds can't accept it. It's like they
No,
start to glitch. Like, no, how could you have to be? And I'm like, I take it on a case by case basis, and I hate them all.
exactly. That was the purpose. Yeah, I hate them all. That was the first quote, was like, I have no enemies except for all the Christians and
That's
all
it.
the Whigs and all the Tories. If you go that route, you just piss everybody off, or confuse the hell out of them.
Yeah, like,
They don't know what to do with you.
See, the problems are too complex for most people to really handle. I mean, think about it like the poor. The poor will always be with you, says the Bible. Well, what do we do about it? We don't want to see people suffer, but then again, we don't want to indulge laziness either. So how do you solve that problem? And it's a matter of truth. And I'll put a little plug in for Aletheia, the goddess of revelation. I mean, it's really important. If you look at these situations, lies are behind the ability for the lazy and indigent to try to rob everybody else. There's always a lie or concealment. Look at the Fabian Society, which I was pointing out. There's always a lie behind it, something going behind somebody's back. And
Right.
that's why I wish we all had telepathy, we could, hey, he's lying.
Lord,
Yeah,
Lord.
another statement by George Bernard Shaw. Fabianism succeeds because no one knows what we're doing.
There you go.
Yeah. Stealth.
And so the
And so
real evil people are not
watching.
known, right?
Oh, no. The really evil ones are probably very, very few, a diminishing number of them.
Yeah, they got a network, though. An egregore, an intelligent network of beings.
The thing that strikes me about the Fabian philosophy is the degree of consistency over time and from place to place. It's the hive mind. And that just seems very unnatural to me, like it seems very creepy on this Halloween, like, for example, Trudeau said once, Canada has no identity. And then the next day, Macron comes out and says, the French have no culture. There is a culture in France, and it is diversity.
Oh, it's French. It's
Can
the
you imagine the
baguette and
French
the
have no
wine.
culture? But they want to erase the cultures of every nation, so they're all speaking the same thing.
Right.
They all over geography, from one end of the earth to the other.
Yeah. Remember the ending to Animal Farm? The human looks in and he can't tell the difference between all the animals because they've all turned into one evil amorphous power center. So
Yeah.
that's what they want.
You go into a paint store and say, there are no colors.
Yeah, yeah. Woo, woo. Well, we've only just begun. We should certainly do another one of these, Adrian. I think we could probably get some more going, but we should probably wrap it up. Excellent conversation. I hope everybody's enjoyed it. As always, please support AM Byte. I am thinking, speaking of suppression, and this is not just me, that for some reason YouTube has been on this kick, and whether you're Myth Vision podcast or some other gamers or me, they have suppressed it. I mean, I've lost like 40-50% of just YouTube traffic. And I'm like, well, maybe people don't care, but my other channels are doing fine.
Is that shadow banning? Is that what they call it?
Yeah, it's huge. So I'm thinking, I don't know, changing my YouTube, jumping off YouTube or everything. The only reason I'm making the same amount of money on YouTube is because of my YouTube shorts, but not because of streaming or the longer videos. So it's
the algorithm.
Yeah, the algorithm has gotten really bad. There's always some chicanery with these people. So, and I feel bad because I have other channels, but other YouTube creators who just depend on YouTube, they're losing 40% of their income. And in this day and age, you will be poor and homeless if you lose that amount, because these are the days. I mean, they've really demolished the economy. Canada, United States, all these countries, they've just demolished because of 2020 was a great the reset, the demolition of Western culture. So yeah, please support AM Byte, or if you have any ideas of what to do with this YouTube channel, let me know. I guess I'm pretty flexible. I'm going to keep it going. And yes, the Gnostics, the Sethians, always call themselves the generation without a king. They certainly believed that even during the Roman times. So, all right, we are at the end. Vance, thanks for keeping us company on this prisoner expose.
Be seeing you.
Be seeing you. Great conversation.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it a lot. Thank you.
Oh, it's always great, Adrian. And yes, join us for the Finding Hermes group. We always have a monthly Q&A, and we have similar discussions. I leave it up to people to bring your questions, and we'll bat them around, and 5-10 of us will just have a great conversation. And there's always a monthly presentation. So I have your book and your show notes, Adrian, but tell people where to find thee.
The easiest way would be through my blog, which would be www.aprisonforthemind.blog. This would be easy to remember, just not .com, .blog.
.blog. All right. But again, it's on the show notes, regardless of where you are watching, or whatever podcast provider you are. So check out Adrian's work. He's got so much, and his book is, again, quite an eye-opener and a third eye-opener. But yeah, we are at the end. We got some other good shows coming in next week, and November is going to be chock full of excellent content. Please support AM Byte, and more importantly, write your own gospel, live your own myth, keep waking up. That's how we win. We go inward, we create better than the creator gods, and then we'll find out what our mission is, and we're going to be fine. So everybody take care and have a good night and a good week.